Good afternoon, everybody. Pigskin Pete here. Happy Tuesday to everybody. I apologize for anybody who's normally expecting me to come on at 4. I mean, if anybody even cares. I just started just a few minutes early today because I got somewhere to be soon. So I don't even know if this will be an hour long or not, but we'll see how it goes. So today we're going to talk about the news that everybody already heard. Urban Meyer announcing that he's retiring after the Rose Bowl. And I also want to talk a little bit about the matchups for the playoffs. So we know we have Notre Dame playing Clemson in the Cotton Bowl, and we have Alabama and Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl. And before I talk about either one of those things, hold on. Let me just. There's not that many people in here right now, so I'll just go ahead and get my shout outs out of the way. Good afternoon, Hound Dog. He says, "Oi." All right, oi. Mel and Matt, good afternoon to you, sir. Ashton Owens in the house. A Catfish from the Volunteer Roadshow says, "What's up, everybody? What's up, Catfish, buddy? Hope you're doing good." Go1330 says, "Good afternoon." Zach in the house. The Crowing Cock says, "Blah ha 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 ha," whatever that means. I think he must be talking about Urban Meyer. Anyways, so actually, I'm going to switch it around. Before I get my blood pressure up, we'll just talk about the Urban Meyer thing and get that out of the way. First of all, I don't think anybody's surprised to hear the news that Urban Meyer's retiring. Pretty much everybody and their mother already thought that this was coming, and it was just a matter of time. When would he do it? I personally thought that he was not going to retire this year. I thought he was going to stay one more year. And the only reason I thought that is I didn't think he wanted to go out after the career he's had. And for whatever you think about Urban Meyer, I mean, there's people on both sides of the spectrum. Some people think he's a complete douchebag, dirtbag, loser. And there's other people that think that he's been raked over the coals and, you know, he didn't really do anything wrong. Despite what you think about him personally, he is one of the top 10 coaches, probably one of the top 5 coaches of all time. Definitely one of the top 5 coaches in the modern era, in this era of football. So there's nobody can take that away from him. I mean, the guy won everywhere he went in college football. I mean, he took Utah from a nobody program to a 12-0 undefeated program. We know what he did at Florida. I mean, he had all sorts of issues off the field with his players at Florida, but he still won 2 national titles there. Then the rest is history. We already know everybody knows what happened after that. He leaves, sits out for a year because of health problems, fake heart attacks, and then goes back to his alma mater and his home state, Ohio State, and leads them to a national championship. And even though he only won one national championship, I mean, I say only one. I mean, that's still a great accomplishment, winning multiple national titles at 2 different schools. But even the years that they didn't win national titles, even the years that they were left out of the playoffs, the last 2 years, they still had amazing seasons. I mean, this guy he's like 88-7 or something at Ohio State, which is amazing. Again, I thought he was gonna leave after next year. I didn't think he wanted to go out like that. I didn't think he wanted his career to end on such a bad note with everything that happened this year. So whether or not this brain cyst thing and these headaches and all this stuff is real or not, I'm not going to sit here and judge him on that. Maybe it is real. I mean, I'm not his doctor. But he still had a lot of shortcomings as a head coach, overlooking things. And maybe, I don't know if he just was ignorant to some of these things, or he was just completely so focused on football that he just overlooked these things. And I mean, I'm not making excuses for the guy. When you're a CEO of one of the biggest football programs in the world, we can say in America, but let's be real here. These top-tier programs in college football are some of the biggest sports programs in the world. And so there's really not any excuse for it. So will we see Urban Meyer at some point in the future coaching somewhere else? I don't know. I was listening to, I think it was the First Take, the one with Shannon Sharp, and I forget the other guy's name. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. Shannon Sharp's a good friend with Urban Meyer. He claims he's an Ohio State grad, obviously, and a NFL Hall of Famer. He thinks that Urban's done for good in coaching. He says that if somehow they can have some sort of procedure or with this brain cyst thing where he can get completely healthy again, that he may come back into coaching at some point, but he doesn't see it happening. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. A lot of people think that he's just going to do the same thing he did at Florida and take a year or two off and then go take some other big job like Southern California or whatever job might be open at that time. There could be several big name jobs open at that time. There's big name jobs open every single year, so we'll see. Catfish coming through with the super chat, $10. A great show. Hit the like button. Thank you, sir. You're amazing and fantastic. One of the best guys on YouTube, not only as a person, but a great video maker. And I never miss a volunteer roadshow show, if that makes any sense. Even if I miss the live show, I'll watch it later. And so thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Yes, and hit the like button, too. All right, so now we got the Urban Meyer thing out of the way. Undisputed, thank you, sir. Well, good afternoon, Delta Charlie. Ichigo 1190, thank you for letting me know the name of that show. Christian Ballard says, can't wait for Sunday. It's my birthday. Well, happy early birthday, I guess. Sunday's your birthday then. I hope you have many more, sir. Michael Moultrie. Cotton Bowl, Clemson 38, Notre Dame 31. Orange Bowl, Alabama 65, Oklahoma 31. Well, I'll get into that in a second. Ashley Gregg says, hey, y'all. Hello, Ashley. So this is the part of the show where I piss people off. I'm sorry. It's gonna happen eventually. In every video I make, every show I make, somebody gets pissed off at me for something. But a lot of times it's for something I didn't even say, which blows my mind. But anyway, I've already made a video about this, so I'm not gonna just repeat myself over and over again. But the crying and moaning, and I use that term every time I discuss this, and I think that pisses people off when I say they're crying and moaning. I don't know what other way to describe it. With the way the playoff committee works and the selection process and the teams that got in. Now, first of all, I want to tell people this. For people that say that the system is broken, well, you can make that argument for every system that's ever been in college football and ever will be, because nothing's going to be perfect, I promise. But for people that are crying and moaning saying the system's broken and that the BCS was better and we should let computers pick it, even though we've been through this before, we had computers picking it, and then everybody wanted to change. We wanted the playoff where people were picking it because people actually watch football games. Former players, former coaches, athletic directors, that sort of thing. The BCS is still around. It's still a system, and they still enter the same information into it that they used to. It just doesn't mean anything anymore. So, sort of like the AP poll doesn't mean anything anymore. The only thing that matters is the College Football Playoff Committee poll. But the BCS system this year and last year, and I want to say 2 years ago, almost every year of the playoffs, but this year, spit out the exact same 4 teams that are in the playoff in the exact same order. So even if we didn't have the playoff committee this year, we had a 14 playoff that was picked by the BCS computer system, it would have been the exact same result. Number 1. And I'm saying I'm off air. It's saying I'm off air. Can somebody, hold on, now saying I'm back on air. Jesus Christ. I sometimes, me and technology don't get along. Well, what's up, Jay Yates? So, I don't know what just happened there, but anyway. So, the number one argument you hear people saying is, well, they say it's the 4 best teams. And that's, they're misleading people by saying it's the 4 best teams. Because Notre Dame's not one of the best teams. I hear that a lot. Georgia's better than Notre Dame. Georgia's better than Oklahoma. Ohio State's better than Notre Dame. Now, I don't know if I slept through an entire Saturday or multiple Saturdays over the season. Did Georgia play Notre Dame at some point during the season that I missed? Did Ohio State play Notre Dame? Did Ohio State or did Georgia play Oklahoma and I slept through it? How can you? That might be your opinion, and everybody's entitled to their opinion that Georgia's better than Notre Dame or Georgia's better than Oklahoma. But just because you think that does not make it a fact. The only way to know if these 2 teams are which one's better than the other is to put them on the field and let them play against each other and see the outcome of it. But that's impossible when you have 130 teams. It's impossible for every great team to play every other great team in America every year. Not ever going to happen. Sorry. Here, The playoff committee, while they're not completely consistent every single year, not 100% consistent, but the reason that I'm able, as just some joker on YouTube, to predict which 4 teams are going to put in there is because they've been doing basically the same thing every year. They punish you massively if you have a blowout loss to any team, really, but a blowout loss to a mediocre team. That's what happened this year with Ohio State. That's what happened last year with Ohio State when they got blown out by Iowa. They also punish people with multiple losses. Now, you can go out there and say, but our 2 losses were 2 great teams. Doesn't matter. Don't lose. You're afforded 1 slip-up, and it better not be a blowout. That's what the committee has been telling everybody for the past 5 years. There's never been a team that's got 2 losses get in the playoffs. There's never been a team that got beat by 3 scores as their only loss by a mediocre team and got in the playoffs. So there's your answer. It's not rocket science. I would argue that Georgia had their playoff game this past weekend. For people that are advocating for 8-team playoffs and 10-team playoffs and all this other nonsense, there was a bunch of playoff games played this season. There was a bunch of playoff games played this past week. Now, you can say it's not fair that Clemson gets to play their playoff game against a mediocre Pitt team, and Georgia has to play their playoff game against Alabama. Well, maybe that's not fair, but you know what else isn't fair? Georgia had a loss going into their playoff game. If they would have won it, they'd have been in. Alabama did not knock Georgia out of the playoffs. LSU did. Oklahoma did not knock out Ohio State out of the playoffs. Purdue did. So, again, if you're a fan of one of these teams, I get as a fan how you would be upset that your team didn't make it in and you want to make some sort of case. But just to go out there and make stuff up, just say things as if they are some sort of fact that haven't been proven, that you're better than those other teams, it's not true. I mean, you have to prove something. You can't just say it and it's a fact. Let me see what's going on here in the comments, and then I'll get into some of the predictions for these games here. JT Yates says he has a theory. Well, let's hear this theory. I love theories, sir. I have a conspiracy theory. I posted it on Twitter the other day. You guys might like this. This has nothing to do with college football. But if everybody in here knows who Josh Gordon is, the wide receiver who had multiple, issues with drugs and stuff, and they kept him around for years, even though he kept failing drug test after drug test after drug test, going to rehab. And then they finally trade him to the Patriots this year after he comes in late, and they said he wasn't acting like himself or something. I have a conspiracy theory that Josh Gordon never actually had a drug problem. He was faking it for all those years, trying to get the Browns to release him, which they never would. Finally, they did, because now that he's on the Patriots and he's got Tom Brady throwing him the football, he doesn't seem to have any more drug problems, does he? He doesn't have any problems showing up to practice on time. This guy was playing the Browns for a joke. Tua is getting hurt against Oklahoma, and Jalen won't be to outscore Kyler, and Oklahoma beats Alabama 45-22. That's a pretty hot take there, sir. I'm going to get into, as soon as I get through some of these comments, I'm going to get right into these predictions for the game. Comic Dude 45, how you doing, sir? As a fan of another Big Ten East school, Ohio State's offense was more explosive under Ryan Day. I'd rather deal with Urban Meyer than Ryan Day. You'll get your wish, because we're going to find that. At least they say they're going to keep him for next year and give him a shot, so we'll see. BCS was a joke. How is it now? How it is? It will never change. The least that happens is a playoff expansion. Obviously, yeah. I'm not stumping for a playoff expansion unless it's only to 6 teams. The more teams you put in there, the more it waters everything down. Okay. So, Will Jones. Good afternoon to you, sir. Hot Cosby also. Says, Pete, I'm headed to Dallas. Well, good luck, sir. Safe travels. Now, the prediction, I mean, is there anybody, I mean, because I do give Oklahoma a shot to beat Alabama. I might be in the minority here. Now, look, is Alabama to this point, because to this point is all that matters, because we haven't seen past this point yet. The best team in the country, yes, they are. They deserve to be in the number one spot. They've proven that they are the best team in the country till now. And now they have to prove it for 2 more games, at least, right? If they win their game against Oklahoma, they'll have to play the winner of Notre Dame and Clemson. But the narrative that everybody's saying is Oklahoma didn't belong in the playoffs. They haven't played nobody. They have no defense, which we all know they don't have no defense. But listen, not having a defense is not a good thing. But the goal of the football, to win a football game, is to score more points than your opponent, and Oklahoma does that year in and year out. And they got one of the most explosive, if not the most explosive offense in the country. Now, the only thing that really, really hurts Oklahoma this year going into this game is the health status of their lead wide receiver, star wide receiver, Hollywood Brown. He got hurt in the Big 12 championship game. There's conflicting reports about whether or not he will be available against Alabama. That will be a big blow if they don't have him. Now, look, is Alabama – forget about whether or not Tua is going to be healthy. We don't know that either. He's having a procedure done on his knee, similar to what Jalen Hurts had done on his ankle, where they're going to scope it and just whatever they say, clean it out, whatever the hell that means. I don't know if they're going to use WD-40, some 409 cleaner on it, but whatever they're going to do a minor procedure, and everybody heals from it in a different time period. They said that when Jalen Hurts got a similar procedure done, that it was only going to last 2 weeks. It kept him out for 4 weeks, I think. But anyway, even without Tua, if Jalen Hurts is the one that starts that game, we already know that anybody can score on Oklahoma. So whether Tua's in there or Jalen or me, you can expect somebody to score 40 to 50 points on Oklahoma's defense on any given week, and that's not going to change. So there you go. So there we have it. So Oklahoma has to go into this game knowing that they're going to give up probably at least 40 points. But they've been doing this. This is nothing new. They've been doing this all year. On the other hand, there is not an offense out there that Alabama's played this year that is anywhere close to as good as Oklahoma's offense. And I know some Georgia fans are going to come on here and tell me that I'm crazy, that Georgia has a great offense too. Yeah, okay, Georgia has a great offense. It's not Oklahoma's offense. It's just not. Sorry. And they are going to get their points. It's going to become a score fest. Now, I tend to lean on the side of Alabama winning this game for the most obvious reasons of them all, is because they're Alabama, number one. They have a explosive offense also. I mean, you can debate back and forth of which one has the more explosive offense, and we can debate about that all night until the cows come home. I'm not going to do that. But Alabama has a top 5 or top 10 defense in America, and that's something that Oklahoma doesn't have. So I think what it comes down to is the fact that Alabama will get 1 or 2 more stops on defense than Oklahoma will. But, again, here goes my computer again. Oh, shit. This is really starting to piss me off. Am I on? Tell me I'm not. I don't know if this is just a problem on my end or if it's causing problems for you guys too, but it's really starting to annoy me. I know that much. Can somebody just confirm or deny whether or not I'm on? Can you hear me? Can you see me? Am I moving? Am I? Okay, you can. All right, good. Sorry. All right. I don't know. What was I saying? Anyway, so yeah, I think that this game, despite what people may think, that it's just going to be a complete drubbing. People think that Oklahoma is way overrated. They can't hang with Alabama. I disagree. I mean, listen, you can say whether the 4th best team in the country or the 5th or the 6th best team doesn't matter. They're in the playoffs at number 4, and there's no way anybody can convince me that the 5th or 6th best team or 4th best team in the country can't compete with anybody. So I hope for a good game. I think it'll be a good game. I think it'll be closer than people think. I'm picking Alabama by 9. That's my official prediction, and that might change about 5 more times between now and December 29th when they play, because there's a hell of a lot that can go on between now and then. So, So next, the next game on the list is obviously Clemson and Notre Dame. Now, clearly I'm a Clemson fan, so I'm extremely biased about this, but I'm going to attempt to do my best to put on my college football fan hat instead of my Clemson hat. All right. I obviously think that Notre Dame belongs in the playoffs. As much as there's nobody that comes on YouTube more than me, or at least as much as me, and bitches and moans about Notre Dame not being in a conference. I don't like it, especially since I'm an ACC homer. I don't think it's good for the ACC. I think it's good for Notre Dame. But that's a whole nother conversation. The conversation here is whether or not Notre Dame belongs where they are, and they absolutely do. They went 12-0, and people say, well, it's not fair that they got to sit home on championship weekend while we had to go out there and either win or lose a game to get in the playoff or get left out. Well, I completely agree with that, but here's the thing. If you want to compare what Notre Dame did, first of all, they went undefeated, and they played a big boy schedule. People always bitch about these teams, ACC teams and SEC teams, playing FCS schools at some point in the year. Well, so how do we judge how hard your schedule is? First of all, who you played, which you have really no control over because you schedule these games years in advance. So a team that might be good when you scheduled it might be a dumpster juice by the time you play them. That's not your fault. That's not Notre Dame's fault. It's not Clemson's fault. But Notre Dame played and beat 10 Power 5 teams in their 12-game season. All right. When you compare that to Clemson, Clemson beat 10 Power 5 teams, even with a 13th team. Alabama beat 10 Power 5 teams, even with a 13th team. So while it's not completely fair that they got to sit out on championship weekend and still get in, they played the same amount of Power 5 football schools as the other top three or four schools. Oklahoma, I think, also did the same thing. So they absolutely belong to be there. And did Notre Dame have some struggle wins this year? Yeah, they struggled against Pitt. They almost lost to Pitt in South Bend, and this is the same Pitt team that Clemson just drubbed and blew out. The same Pitt team that UCF blew out. They almost lost to Ball State like the second week of the season, which is a high school team, and they had like another close game. I can't remember exactly who it was. But despite all that, they had some struggle wins against some, not so great talent. They still beat Michigan the first game of the year, which Michigan ended up being a top 10 team, right? And they beat everybody on their schedule. I mean, that's the key. Win the game. Whether it's close or not, don't lose the game. Because here's the reality. If Notre Dame had lost that game to Pitt, or had lost that game to Michigan, or had lost that game to Ball State, they would have not gotten the playoffs because they wouldn't have had that 13th game. So Notre Dame absolutely belongs in the playoffs. I think people that think that Notre Dame is overrated, I mean, I think that's a little bit of a stretch to say that they're overrated. Do you know how hard it is to go 12-0 in a regular season and play a Power 5 football schedule? It's extremely difficult. And every team has slip-ups. Either you lose a game, or even if you're a great team like Ohio State or Georgia, you go on and lay a complete egg somewhere. So the fact that they didn't lay an egg and they won every single game they played, they absolutely belong there. And I think that they absolutely can beat Clemson. I think Clemson's better than them. I think Clemson has more talent. I think Clemson has a better quarterback, and I think Clemson has a better defensive line and a better defense and better skill players on the outside, mainly the wide receiver core. But that doesn't mean that they're going to beat them. Any team can win on any given day, I promise. What I would like to see is Clemson go out there and do what they did to Ohio State, because I'm a Clemson fan. A couple of years ago and beat them 31-0 or something like that. I mean, nothing would make me happier than to see that. I would love that. But I'm not predicting that. Ohio State's they're a legit top 4 team in my mind. Definitely a top 5 team. And I think they can give Clemson a game, and hopefully it comes out in Clemson's favor. I think it's going to be close. I'm going to give Notre Dame their credit here. I'm going to say that Clemson wins by 7. And in my heart, I think that Clemson will beat them by more than 7, but I'm trying to use my brain instead of my heart here, which is very hard for me to do when it comes to talking about my Tigers. So I'm going to say Clemson by 7. Yeah. So, and there's also rumors about Brian Kelly leaving Notre Dame. Where are my Notre Dame fans at? They love to come in my comment section when I post a video, but I don't see a lot of them on here during the live shows. Thank you, Hot Cosby. Vanderbilt was the team that the other team that Notre Dame struggled against, and that also was in South Bend, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, thank you. Someone actually agrees with me, which is very rare. So thank you. Delta Charlie, good afternoon to you, sir. Richard Neal says, you play to win the game. You play to win the game. It's Herm Edwards' favorite quote there. Clemson needs to get that secondary fixed. Clemson's secondary, despite the fact that South Carolina exploited them a little bit and had a couple of big plays, Clemson's secondary is elite, I promise you. And they've proven that all year. What South Carolina did, I'm not taking any credit away from South Carolina or making excuses, because they did expose weaknesses in Clemson's secondary. So I'm not making an excuse here. But what they did, they had a great game plan going in there. They did all kinds of crazy formations. If you go watch that game, they had linemen out wide. I mean, they did line formations offensively that they had not done all year and that Clemson had not seen all year. And the biggest thing was that they were doing that in the first half of the football game. And this is on the coaches. This isn't on Clemson's defense, because they're just out there playing the game. This is on the coaching staff, because they were doing those crazy formations and having success at it in the first half of the football game, and being the stubborn coaching staff that Clemson has. And that's always been my biggest gripe with Clemson's coaching staff. Their elite coaching staff, obviously, look at where they are since that coaching staff has been in place, and they know a hell of a lot more about X's and O's than Pigskin Pete does. But they did not make the adjustments to it. They just continue to. They had this mantra that they live by, that we're just going to do what we do. That's what makes us great. That's gotten us where we've gotten. Well, that's gotten you beat a couple times to mediocre teams like Pitt and Syracuse, because you didn't change the way you do things. And sometimes you have to change. And that's not just me saying it, because Brent Venables himself said after the game in the press conference that he did not make the adjustments. He continued to do what he thought that South Carolina was going to do, before the game started, and that was completely on him. But again, I'm not taking anything away from South Carolina. They had a good game plan, and they executed it, and they made the big plays. So, Pete, just heard Kelvin Benjamin cut by Bills. Well, no shocker there. I mean, the guy sucks. What's up, a Pack Fan 12? Guys, I have an interesting stat. What's that? Mike Lee, a good afternoon to you, sir. I don't know if I've seen you in here before, unless you changed your name, but I see a Notre Dame logo by your name there. So good to see you here, sir. And what you're saying here is not only news to my ears, but it's music to my ears. I wish Notre Dame was in the Big Ten or something, right? But because the vast majority of the Notre Dame fans that I argue with online every day or every week or every football season are defending why Notre Dame is independent. And so for somebody like you, who's a fan clearly, to come out and say otherwise, that might be the first time I've ever heard a Notre Dame fan say that, quite honestly. What's up, Garrison? How you doing, sir? Leonard Clemens says, Clemson fan since 1965. Man, you're an OG, an old head, sir. You've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, and back to the good again. Great day to be a Tiger, sir. Welcome. Michigan have played Ohio State at home. They'd have won and got and being in 28 Big Ten. I mean, come on, Christian. If they'd have played them at home, or if, ands, and buts, I mean, there's a lot of ifs, man. I mean, if Georgia had scored more points than Alabama, then they would have won the SEC, but they didn't. So, lots of ifs. By the way, Catfish, he wants to have me. Well, first of all, I'm down to do that. a fan face-off for a Notre Dame fan. I had a Notre Dame fan contact me on Twitter, another video maker. I found one. I found a Notre Dame video maker for you. I'll contact you off air later and tell you about that. See if he responds to me. Yeah. The last 4 Ohio State coaches have lost all their final games to Purdue. So Purdue is basically responsible for killing great coaches for Ohio State, huh? Is there anybody happier than Michigan right now, though? I mean, Ohio State fans, well, some Ohio State fans are happy that Urban's leaving, but a lot of them aren't. They're probably disappointed. But Michigan fans are over the moon about this. I mean, Jim Harbaugh is probably having a party tonight, an early Christmas party. He's going to have a bowl, a big old cocktail bowl full of heart medicine and brain food for everybody, free of charge. This will open the door up for sure for Michigan to take over the Big Ten. Well, not just Michigan. Penn State is another team that could take over that reign. So what you're going to see now, of course, I'm assuming that Ohio State's going to take a step back, but I think it's hard to not take a step back when you lose one of the best football coaches in modern football. I mean, now Ryan Day might be great, and he might surpass all of our expectations, and he might lead them to be a playoff contender next year and the year after that. For all we know, who knows? But I find it hard to believe that when you lose a coach, a football coach, I'm not talking about person, as good of a football coach as Urban Meyer has been throughout his career, that you don't take at least a little bit of a step back initially. So we'll see. But I think that opens the door wide open for both Michigan and Penn State. Ryan Day is good. Yeah, well, that's why he's getting the job, because he's good. And he's an elite offensive coordinator. Sometimes that does not always translate to being a head coach, where you have to do the recruiting and all of the politics involved. And, just the whole thing. Running an entire football program is a lot different than being a coordinator. And so sometimes people are great coordinators and not great head coaches. And there's no way for us to even begin to know if he's going to be a great head coach until we see it happen. So, Notre Dame isn't even playing Purdue until 2021. They pick their own schedule. Oh, well, a lot of teams pick their own schedule for the most part. Believe me, I have to explain to people, because I'm always defending Clemson's schedule. Because, I mean, I don't know if people just don't know. They're ignorant about it or whatever when they say Clemson doesn't play nobody. Well, this year they didn't play nobody because the teams that are normally good in the ACC, fell off, like Louisville and obviously Florida State. Miami had a bad year. But Clemson goes out of its way more than most big-time football programs do to schedule a home and home with SEC schools. So every single year we play an SEC school. So 1 year it's a road game, 1 year it's a home game, right? This year we played A&M on the road. We'll play them at home next year. Before that we played Auburn 5 times in 6 years. And those were home and home games. And I think one of them was a neutral field game. We have scheduled, we have Georgia scheduled in the early 2020s for a home and home series with them. We go out our way. We try to schedule Tennessee, LSU. These are all people that we threw out offers to, trying to fill our schedule with an SEC team. And the ones that we got so far were Georgia and A&M in these next few years. But Clemson does not run from playing big boy schools in true road games every year. And we also play South Carolina every year. So that's 2 SEC schools we play every year on top of our ACC schedule. So there's no padding of a schedule compared to a lot what these other schools do. Have you looked at the University of South Carolina's schedule this year? They played 3 non-Power 5 football teams. And they played in a weak division in the SEC East, which isn't always weak, but it's been weak the past few years. They did play Georgia, which is a great team, and they did play Clemson, but that's just because that's a rivalry game. But the games that they scheduled that weren't already fixed were no good. So, Urban will be a coach again. Book it. Yeah, I wonder what the line in Vegas is on that. That'd be interesting to see. Will Urban Meyer become a coach again? What's up, Tiger Nate? Billy Dawson. How you doing, sir? That reminds me. Clemson Jacob in the house. So I was hoping that this Kelly Bryant thing would have been resolved by now by the time I did this stream today so I could talk about it. Because I think it's fun to speculate and talk about where he's going and project and all that sort of thing. But I don't think he's supposed to announce it until like this evening sometime. So we'll see. We'll see where he goes. I'm picking Auburn. That's been my predictions from the time that he said he was leaving. I'm still hearing a lot of people saying he could go to Missouri or even possibly Arkansas. I'm still going to stick with my original thing saying he's going to go to Auburn. What's up, Uncle Lou? Good afternoon, or good morning, as you would say. People who cry about schedules and say who have they played are complete morons and football ignorant. Believe me, I couldn't agree more, sir. There's not a single team. In fact, why don't we just say whoever's got the hardest schedule, strength of schedule every year, we'll just put them in the playoffs and screw playing the entire season. We'll just take who had the hardest schedules in the season this year. LSU, right? They always cry about how they had a hard schedule. That's why they suck. Who else? Who else has a hard schedule that I'm not thinking of? Because you know why I'm having a hard time thinking about it? Because there aren't that many. There's no way for every school to have a hard schedule. That's why I hear about Alabama hadn't played nobody. Clemson hadn't played nobody. Georgia hadn't played nobody. Notre Dame hadn't played nobody. That's the 4 team. Oklahoma hadn't played nobody. Well, how far down the effing list do you have to go to find somebody that did play somebody? It doesn't make any sense. Leave it to Uncle Lou to get my blood pressure up. I thank you, sir. I agree with everything you said. If you need to see Alabama or Clemson or UGA play a top 10 team, you know they are good. Then you're a friggin' idiot. I mean, you're making so much sense that I'm gonna have to end the show now. Exactly. I mean, Uncle Lou, I saw your stream yesterday, and I miss most of your afternoon streams because I'm doing something at 3:00 on those days. But I saw the one yesterday. I tried to call in, couldn't get through. It's harder to get into your show than it is to get into friggin' Paul Feinbaum, sir. But I mean, I was losing my mind. This one guy calls in and says Clemson got lucky. Clemson got lucky. They haven't played, the same old crap that everyone says. If you can sit there, if you can watch Clemson play 12, 13 football games, and you think that they're not an elite team that deserves to be in the playoffs or not one of the top 2 or 3 teams in America, then you need to stop watching football. Take up knitting. Watch soccer. I don't know. Golf is fun. It's expensive, though. But something other than football should be taking up your time because you clearly are completely moronic and have no business watching football. Exactly, sir. Thank you. And I'm gonna end it on that note. I would love to stay here and argue with some of you people more. Now he's trolling me. All right. Listen, the reason I started this show earlier today is because I have to leave or I got somewhere I gotta go. So thanks everybody for stopping in. I'll be back on Thursday at 4 p.m. And man, I don't have a game to stream this weekend. It's gonna be weird. No football games this weekend to stream. I'll have to figure out something else. If you want to support the show, there's a link in the description to this video to the Patreon page. You click on that. It takes you 5 minutes to sign up. You can read about the benefits of doing that. I am going to come up with some sort of bigger incentive for people to join the Patreon page in the next few weeks when I have time. Thank you to Billy Dawson and Tiger Nation for being the first 2 to sign up for that. Thank you to Catfish from the Volunteer Roadshow for the super chat. I appreciate that, sir. Thank you everybody else that stopped in to either yell at me and tell me how stupid I am or to tell me I'm great or anything in between or yell at each other, whatever you had to do. Thank you, Uncle Lou, for coming in and being one of the only people that ever comes on here and makes any sense. Yeah. So I guess that's it. Until Thursday. Listen, if you're a Georgia fan or an if you're a Georgia fan or an Ohio State fan, Please don't jump off of a bridge between now and Thursday. I'm going to need you. I need you. I don't have enough subscribers to afford losing people jumping off bridges because they didn't get in the playoffs. Thank you. Have a great day. Big C and Pete checking out.